What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Canes Insight Daily Podcast, powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. It's Wednesday, my favorite day of the week. Talking to the mic, Pete is saying, talking to the mic. I am talking into the mic. How are you sounding, Pete?
Better.
Why don't you hop in?
Hopping
right
to
here.
Pete.
If you're
Hopping
gonna
to
making directions. There he is.
I mean, listen, Mike, you can attest to it. What did I say 10 seconds before the show
Talking
started?
to the mic. Talking to the mic.
Well, listen, we got the professional right here, Mike Ryan. So, Mike, we're getting into game season. I know recruiting, we were trying to stretch that as long as we could, kind of ran out of steam there at the end. We'll see. Hopefully, we get some surprises here and bring it back, but more likely shifting gears to the season. And we were talking before the show, and you think that this is basically, you didn't use the words make or break, but you insinuated that this is just a critical season to get over the hump. If not now, basically when?
Well, I think year 4 for any recruiting-based head coach especially, but for any head coach, that's always been the mile marker. Year 3, you can start making a decent judgment, and I think Mario Cristobal, while they fell short of expectations, which was in-house, we need to get to Charlotte. Unfortunately, it was a wonky ACC year, and you had a bunch of teams in the ACC mix that didn't end up playing one another, so you didn't get to see that play out on the field. That being said, Miami led by 21 at Syracuse. All they had to do was win that game. They would have been firmly entrenched in the college football playoff, you would imagine, and that would have been a wild success for Miami in year 3. In year 4, you have the centennial season of the Miami Hurricanes. Year 4 of a recruiting-based head coach that has proof of concept, that has a top 10 high school recruiting class, a top 10 transfer portal class, has built on having a Heisman finalist, certified number 1 pick in the NFL draft, got Carson Beck over here, continues to build out that line. The talent has been elevated at the University of Miami. The depth has been elevated at the University of Miami. You got 4 road games this year. 4 road games. Think about all the years we've gone through line by line and identified tricky road games. Got fewer of those to identify this year. You got maybe a night game at SMU. We'll see what they are. Is it time for them to turn into a pumpkin, or are they for real? We like what they've done in the transfer portal. We recognize a lot of the names. Virginia Tech. What kind of shape is that program going to be in? That's always a difficult game for Miami, but the good Miami teams, they go into Blacksburg and win. If not now, you look to next year, it's not going to be the same kind of deal. Now, Miami is blessed in that they have a bunch of marquee games that'll dilute that, and there will be a national talking point about road games, I'm sure, if Miami is ranked top 5D. We know that the haters are going to crawl out of wherever it is. It's going to be a narrative that doesn't surround teams like Notre Dame. How many true road games did Notre Dame play last year? They do that nonsense with the service academies where they play games in Yankee Stadium, calling it a road game. The nerve. You actually don't have a lot of SEC teams that play true road games. They go to neutral sites. They try to avoid it at all costs. What Miami is doing this year is kind of analogous to what power programs do. Let's talk about the home slate. You got Notre Dame, D. And Notre Dame, week 1 is exactly when you want this program because all of the unknowns. I don't know how much you've looked at some of the recent news around their offensive line. They have an unproven quarterback, although a quarterback that's featured some, but he's never gone into Hard Rock kicking off a stadium week 1 under the bright lights. This is when you want to catch that team.
No doubt. I mean, look, they've had trouble with MAC teams early, right? Talk about Marshall. Talk about, who was it last year? The MAC team, Northern
Illinois.
So they have been a team that catches their stride later under Marcus Freeman. So that's something to keep an eye on. Obviously, they're going to be jacked for this game. I don't think this is going to be a game where you catch them sleeping by any means, but maybe it takes some time to coalesce. Kind of interesting Notre Dame team in that the receivers are a strength for this team, which has not been the case historically. Offensive line, always good. They've lost some of the depth. We talked about that. Guys, they had an abundance of starters last year, so they were able to get through some injuries. A lot of those guys went to Nebraska, Tennessee, Indiana, different places to start. So you've lost that quality depth. Charles Jagasaw, projected to be maybe their most talented offensive lineman, wherever you line him up, hurts his arm. We don't know if he's going to be out. He's going to be missing time in the camp. What's his deal? So their offensive line is going to be great, but not as deep maybe as it was last year. Will be an interesting game.
And let's talk about another assumed strength of theirs. If Miami played in the college football playoff against Notre Dame, We'd like to think that they would have done better than Indiana from an offensive standpoint, right? They would have put on a better show, no doubt. But Bryce Love would have run for 300 yards against Miami. With those outside runs, those power stretch runs that he does, Miami showed an inability throughout the season to stop that. You have a brand new defensive coordinator. You have some new personnel. You have developed personnel. But let's not pretend like the Minnesota Golden Gophers were incredible at stopping the run. Granted, different program, different personnel. Maybe Coach Heatherman has plenty of success against the run in previous stops. But Miami needs to prove that they can stop plays to the outside. Not just the power stretches, not just the stretch runs. Anytime there was motion, a jet motion, Miami got all out of sorts. Anything on the perimeter outside the hash marks was a problem for Miami defensively. Can they stop it? Week one, in terms of talent at the running back position, that's top of the line. That's high watermark over there with Notre Dame. And I'm really concerned about that. And despite everything that we'll see in practice, Miami has a good offensive line and great running backs. Can they replicate what the looks that they'll get from Notre Dame? Can they replicate that game action week one? That's a tough opponent.
I'll push back a little bit in this way. I think what concerns me with Jeremiah Love is really explosive plays. Miami last year was horrible in explosive plays. That's what killed Miami. You think of the first game, Montrell Johnson has that long touchdown run in a game that was otherwise dominated by Miami against the Gators. You think of the running back, Jaden Ott, who Miami stuffed him pretty good, but then he got on that.
He was also hurt.
He was hurt, but they got him on that. He got us on that
Stepped out of bounds.
fourth down.
And thank you for correcting me so kindly. I had him as a former Stanford running back.
Yeah. So no, but about no Jeremiah Love. Yeah, Bryce Love. You're right. Yeah. Exactly. No, Jeremiah Love with one of the most explosive backs in the country. But when you look at the rush defense, this actually surprised me. So Minnesota, where Heatherman came from, ranked 20th in the country yards per rush against. And I like to look at yards per rush against as opposed to like cumulative yards, because sometimes teams are ahead and they're just, or teams are behind and the other team's running. Like it depends. Yeah. But yards per rush, more an efficient measure. So Minnesota's 20th in that.
Okay.
Miami actually last year, believe it or not, was 36th in the country. Not bad. Right behind Georgia. Georgia was 35th. Notre Dame was 31st. So our run defense was actually not that bad on a per rush basis. Now, there were some times like end of games where teams were able to run a little bit more. Obviously, Georgia Tech with that weird offense, they were making us look stupid. But really what killed Miami last year, of course, pass defense. We know that. The pass rush taking a step back with all those stunts for a team that you thought was going to rush the passer, and then the explosive play in all facets. And I think with Notre Dame, that's my primary concern. They're going to run the ball because they're a great running team. If you look at yards per rush average, like 4, like the offensive side of it, Miami and Notre Dame both top 5. But I think if Jeremiah Love, what he makes him tough is he won't just get a good 30-yard run. He'll get a good 70, 60, 50-yard touchdown on you. And of course, those plays in these marquee games, you think about Florida when Kadarius Toney killed us on that long run opening game, just kind of blew it open. LSU, they beat us pretty badly, but they also had a long run as well. Those take the wind out of your sails in these opening games. That's what you fear, at least for me, with the Jeremiah Love.
Pete, with what you saw at spring, early install with this defense, we know that Miami gave up big chunk plays at an FCS type clip. It was not good for Miami, and a lot of those players are still on this roster. So personnel is going to have to develop. The coaching is going to have to improve. Do you think Miami has done enough to mitigate this challenge? From what little you've seen in a couple of weeks, we may know more.
Schematically, it's tough to say. I haven't seen too much there. I would say, have they done enough to mitigate it? They went out and did a lot in the portal and in the back end, obviously. I still think we've talked about this a lot. The defensive line and the pressure that they bring, at least in the passing game, needs to be better than what it's been. And you didn't do a whole lot in the portal there. So you need these guys to show what you hope they're capable of. What we've seen out of Ruben Bain, which I know we're going to get to him more specifically later in the show here, but he's got to live up to the standard he kind of set in his freshman season. Then you need the young guys to step up, because we talk so much about the secondary, but that pass rush needs to be better.
And schematically, do you think one thing that I found frustrating, you're supposed to have an advantage on the defensive line, and we can all raise our hands and say we got defensive line expectations wrong, or the players fell well short of that. The defensive line was not as advertised last year. But one thing that got me really frustrated is we're out here running stunts when every team in the nation has film on us, and they're just going to run outside, and all we're doing is taking ourselves out of position. Heatherman's scheme, are we going to be seeing as many stunts?
No. And Evan makes a point here too. He says it was mitigated the second they switched DCs. Mesidor and Bain will be in the backfield instead of in coverage. I think
you'll see Mesidor in coverage.
Yeah, I think there's reasons for a lot of that stuff happening within the scheme, but I definitely don't think you're gonna see as much of it.
What about my chief concern, D Money? Personnel on the outside. Once you get outside the hash marks, Miami was a big problem. They would have defenders on an island, sometimes being totally out of position. And when the defender was there, the offensive player was able to shake them, make a play, get a chunk play. What has Miami done on the outside? Are there sure tacklers? Xavier Lucas. We know that they address the defensive back position, but are these guys good in space? Can they stop these big plays from happening? Can they make some TFLs even?
So if you go outside, right, let's just leave Frederic there because he was there last year. Well, you expect him to, he was a good tackler last year, actually. Surprisingly, he's gotten bigger. So let's assume he goes in the right direction. Your nickel last year was Daryl Porter. Solid player, but really was playing out of position in the nickel. He should have been an outside receiver. That's what he was in 23 when he had a good season for us. So you replace him with Keontae Scott, who was one of the best nickels in the SEC under Coach Etheridge at Auburn. Etheridge is here now. Scott's back to playing nickel. He was playing outside last year. He's 190 pounds, NFL prospect before he moved outside. So just from a size standpoint, I think, and just overall talent at that position, I think you're in your improved spot there. Lucas is 200 pounds. So just size-wise, he's going to be a bigger guy on the edge than what you had last year. And then safety, Zechariah Poyser, I think, is going to be a level above both the safeties we had last year. Jacoby Thomas, I've heard good things. I was asking about him, talking to sources around the program. They said they're very happy with what he's doing. They say he's more athletic than people think. He's a very good athlete. But really, his calling card is physical, knock people out type of player. So that also adds to it. So I think those spots should be better. Linebacker, we'll see. If we can get outside. Bassane, I think, is poised for a pretty good year. Mo Torrey, they're saying, is going to be the guy we haven't had on this defense. Bobby Prude, who's a speedy linebacker, a safety / linebacker, was singled out to me when I talked to sources about the team. So all those guys, I think, you're talking about space tackling. I think all of those guys could help in that way. We had some comments I wanted to get to. Kyle made a good point. Talking about explosive plays. Isaac Brown from Louisville, who we play again.
Yes.
He's going to, from Miami, Florida, one of the highest rated running backs in the country. He hit us for one early. Then we shut down Brown for the rest of the game. We also, and we're going to go to the scheduling in a second.
It was also a strange game.
Oh yeah.
It was a very weird game flow in that game, but you're absolutely right. Miami did well in limiting him. We were worried about him.
And that just in general, we play some explosive backs. We play him this year. We played Desmond Reed, another South Florida guy from Miramar High School, smaller guy, but had a ton of big runs last year for Pittsburgh. One of the more dynamic, kind of just big play running backs in the country. So we got those guys on the schedule on top of a Jeremiah Love. I had a comment here I wanted to get to from New King God. He said, are we going to actually talk Miami football? Or are we going to get sidetracked again and talk about Love Island? No and Mike.
I don't watch Love Island, but we are going to get sidetracked later on. But I hope
you're
happy.
We're rolling right now.
We're still in July, and we are hitting football really hard now.
Yeah, we're rolling.
Talk ball. We're
going to talk ball. I want to swing the pendulum back over briefly before you get to more comments about Notre Dame. You mentioned they do start slow under Marcus Freeman. That serves Miami well later in the season when they get into a little bit more of a flat track. But is it going to be too late? I don't know if you guys have seen Notre Dame's schedule to open the season, but they play Miami, Texas A&M, Arkansas. All these games are happening before Halloween. You may goose yourself up on a big performance against Notre Dame, and they may have 3 losses come October. Now, they still may be a very good team. I think they really, there's no doubt they maximize their talent to be able to survive that NIU loss and be there in the end, a runner-up that was just broken by the end, be able to survive all those injuries. I think, look, I don't want to give Notre Dame credit just as much as the next Miami Hurricanes fan, but they were really impressive with their toughness and their resilience last year. They had every excuse to punt on games. They didn't. That being said, you look at the overall talent on the roster, the question marks around the quarterback. The fact that they lost some contributors in the secondary, and that's kind of Marcus Freeman's thing. Again, you want them week one. I expect them to take a step back. I don't think that this is a national runner-up team again. Miami does have this team where they want them, because Miami's arrow, yeah, they don't have Cam Ward anymore, but I think overall we think Miami's arrow is pointing up, right? From an overall talent perspective.
Yeah.
And if we're viewing things through that lens, Miami's arrow is up from an overall talent perspective. Notre Dame's maybe down.
I'll say this. No, I don't agree. I think Notre Dame's talent is there. I think where Notre Dame is going to have a disadvantage is it's game one. It's Labor Day weekend. It's on the road. We saw the last time I played Notre Dame at night in the Rock. It was, according to Kirk Herbstreit, the loudest environment of that entire season.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I've said it a couple times before. There were a lot of people that work on College Game Day. I was working with ESPN at the time, and these guys are not hyperbolic. They see all the best atmospheres in the nation. They told me, and I don't know what's changed since 2017, but these are guys that have been around the block covering college football and all the big atmospheres for 20 years. They told me 2017, Hard Rock Stadium, Miami Notre Dame, it's the second loudest stadium experience they've ever experienced in their college football lives, behind LSU's Death Valley.
There you go. So you're talking about elite home field at night. Then you go to Notre Dame side. I think talent, I don't agree that talent's down. Where I think they're going to have a little bit of an issue here, CJ Carr, who by all accounts is very talented, the grandson of Lloyd Carr, 4-star player from the state of Michigan.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that about Lloyd.
Lloyd Carr. It's amazing Michigan didn't get him. But when you pull up his stat page, and I'll show you right now, he's got a nice little fade in the picture. Let's see here. Let's go to CJ
Taylor
Carr.
Vippolis.
Yeah, he looks like him. There you go. Yeah, as you can see, the stat page is blank. Never thrown a college pass. So
crazy.
A quarterback in their first game in a very charged atmosphere.
Yikes.
Miami's going to be flying around on defense. It's their first game. They're going to be rocking and rolling just from a physicality standpoint, ready to hit somebody. So that combination is tough. Now, it's Notre Dame. They have a good offensive line. They can ease him into the game. They got veteran receivers, which will help him as well. But, they have to ease him into the game. Whereas with Carson Beck, you expect Miami to just go in there rocking and rolling and running their aggressive offense, because Carson Beck has played in games. First, he's at home, so the crowd's not against them. But in terms of the general hype and environment, I mean, Beck has played in bigger games. So
Carson Beck
make a difference.
On the opposite side of the coin, Carson Beck has started 27 college football games, a lot of them in the SEC. By the way, his record 24-3 as a college football starter. He can't be losing this game to a true freshman. He can't be. He can't be losing this game to a freshman that hasn't made any college football starts. And we've seen all the aggregate reports that continue to be off the mark when it comes to his compensation and bonus structure.
Yeah, what's the story there?
I mean, it changes all the time.
Yeah.
I've seen 4.6. Now, all of a sudden, we've walked that back, and I've seen 4, all from the same publication. No accountability whatsoever about their previous numbers over there. Now, all of a sudden, I'm supposed to trust the same publication with what his bonus structure is. I don't know the number. You don't know the number. I just happen to know that the numbers that keep being put out there are wrong. I know nothing about his bonus structure. That being said, if what is reported is he's got a ceiling of $2 additional million in bonus payments, I imagine that is top of the line performance bonus stuff, like college football playoffs, semifinals, national championship even. I think if you start reaching those escalators, Carson Beck has paid for himself in that regard, and paying him an additional $2 million is the least of anyone's concern. Miami has this, I know it's quantifiable with engagement, but you invoke Miami and NIL, and a lot of this is our own doing early on with John Ruiz making a show of it. We didn't help ourselves, and there's a lot to be said about John Ruiz. Let me say something positive. In the early going, he did help.
Oh, huge.
He was absolutely huge. He allowed Miami to hit the ground running and seize on market inefficiencies, and that the rest of the nation didn't really necessarily know what they were doing, and Miami was just dying for a legal path back into the game. And John Ruiz was ready. We caught John Ruiz at the right time. He caught the limelight at the right time. But we have paid for the sins of our father quite a bit here. Moreover, John Ruiz has been less of a factor much longer than he ever was a factor in terms of being a serious player in Miami's NIL. But that does not change the national perception. So things like Carson Beck, we know we've talked about his it factor. You couple that it factor with that beautiful U in branding, you're going to get an engagement paradise for bad faith aggregators.
And can I say something
Engagement paradise for bad faith aggregators. Huh.
Yeah.
Talk about insider language right there. Look at that.
It's just it's interesting because obviously every time it's out, everyone's like, wow, that's a lot of money for him. Can we understand that that's what the market is for? It's like the NFL. Yes. Do you want to pay Tua all that money? Ideally, you don't. He hasn't been healthy, right? There's different factors for every deal that gets done, but you have to pay quarterbacks a lot of money if you want a top level quarterback. Whether or not he ends up being that, that's what we watch this beautiful sport for. Let's see what happens. But that's what the market is for a quarterback like that.
Kings Cat 305 points out he built the baseball team a weight room. I'm not here to take any credit away from John Ruiz when it comes to the baseball weight room and whatnot, but I am here to give credit to the rest of his family that also had a hand in that. And John Ruiz takes a lot of the shine there. There was a wife in the picture that was a big contributor to what Miami was doing, and a lot of family reasons for that. So it's a Ruiz family weight room. It ain't John Ruiz solely.
Michael Ryan Ruiz?
No, despite certain employees over at the University of Miami that insist that I'm related to John, I am not at all.
So Detective Holmes had a comment about Carson Beck. He said 24-3 with Curry Smart. Mario's coaching him this year, so we'll see. Here's what I'll say. When Mario had Justin Herbert, he went 12-2, won the Rose Bowl top 5, 12 wins in a season. We throw a parade for that. When he had Cam Ward last year, he was really 10-2. The 3 was not with Cam Ward, the Iowa State. Because the half that Cam Ward was in, we were winning and scoring at will. So really, I would say if you give Mario that level of quarterback, and I am not saying that Beck is that level, that's what he has to prove. But I'm saying the idea that, Mario's going to kill a good quarterback, I think that's been neutralized pretty good by the fact that Cam Ward went 1-1. Herbert had a tremendous success with Mario and developed just fine for the pros. I mean, it's not like he had a learning curve in the pros.
He doesn't have the same kind of success in terms of wins and losses, though.
Right. Well, Herbert really started winning in the pros because here's the thing that I think people, and this is I have my things that I always kind of get upset about. People on the Canadians is like, oh, Mario, he just wants to be tough and physical. He just wants to run the ball. The teams that win run the ball and play that style, especially in college. It's common sense. Alabama did it for a decade and won a ton of championships. Georgia did it without the best passing game in the world.
Michigan did it.
Michigan just did it. Ohio State had a lot of things, but certainly they had 2 backs that were top 2-round picks, and they had a good offensive line. Their quarterback was not a world beater in Will Howard. So that is really how you win. Notre Dame last year going to the game. Riley Leonard could barely pass, and they went to the championship game, running the ball, top 5, along with Miami. So running the ball is the way you win. And I think what we saw with Justin Herbert, and someone correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but this is how I see it happening. Mario went 12-2 with Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert goes to the NFL, throws all over the place, puts up ungodly numbers, loses, but puts up ungodly numbers. Everybody said, man, Mario, he was wasting time running the ball with Justin Herbert, winning 12 games, winning the Rose Bowl, going top 5. He was winning the conference. They said, oh, he's wasting time with Justin Herbert because Justin Herbert, look at him in the pros. Even though he's losing, he's throwing the ball over the yard. He should have thrown it more. Fast forward, Herbert never makes the playoffs until his head coach, Jim Harbaugh. And what did Jim Harbaugh do the second that he got to Los Angeles Chargers? Drafted an offensive lineman, pared down the passing game, ran the ball. So the idea that and this was a very popular narrative at the time on the message boards, on the show. You heard it too, I'm sure, that Mario wasted a Justin Herbert. Mario didn't waste a Justin Herbert. He did the right thing to win games, which he did with Justin Herbert. With Cam, obviously didn't waste Cam. It was a first overall pick. We ran the ball like gangbusters, and we threw it. Best offense in the country by far. Where the problem was on the defensive end, but it had nothing to do with running the ball. It had to do with the fact that our defense just wasn't where it needed to be. So I think that idea, that narrative that Mario's going to just be a caveman and ruin these quarterbacks, I don't buy that. I think Mario's going to give Carson Beck every chance to succeed, both because Shannon Dawson is a good offensive coordinator, because the running game is going to be on point and allow much better than it was at Georgia, which was 104th in the nation, and allow Carson Beck to do what he does. And it's up to Carson Beck to do his thing.
And he won a Rose Bowl with Justin Herbert. And more importantly for Miami fans, is going to be triggering. He beat Wisconsin in an important bowl game, which is not something that Miami has proven to be able to do. And let's keep in mind the success that he had after Justin Herbert there at Oregon. Not guys that are in the pros right now. What was it? Davis? Who was it?
It's interesting. So they won the championship in 2020. He actually had Tyler Shuck. He recruited Tyler Shuck, which was a good evaluation. Maybe, I don't think they got along too good. Or at least the separation was not good.
Mm-hmm.
They won the conference. That was kind of the weird year where Pac-12 barely played any games because of COVID. And it was, I think the team that was going to go to the championship had to drop out. It was some weird stuff. They won They won the game though. So that was big. Then 2021. What happened in 2021 with
they had the BC kid, didn't they?
Right, because then 2022 was his first year. Right, so they won 10 games with Anthony Brown.
Yeah.
So 10 games, which again is our high water mark of the last few years here. That was done with a quarterback that really was not a dynamic passer. So they won at Oregon. Now it's about getting over the hump, which is what we're talking about here, and what kind of the theme was of this video, which was really, this is an important season for Mario, beyond important.
Huge.
That's a kind of an understatement. This is almost a make or break. And I'm pulling up the schedule here, Mike.
Is make or break because you projected make or break on me. Are you saying make or break? Because I'm willing to put, it's a centennial. It's year 4 of Mario Cristobal. They have Carson Beck, who's being paid somewhere between $2 and $17 million annually. All right. So they only have to go on the road.
Escalators. You got to take a look at those escalators.
They only have to go on the road 4 times this year. Yeah, they play Florida. Yeah, they play Notre Dame. They got those games at home. They got Notre Dame week 1, notorious slow starting program that with an unproven quarterback. You got a quarterback that has made big money, has won SEC championships, that is 24-3. Your ass better be in Charlotte. Straight up. If it isn't, it better be some wonky ass explanation like last year. Miami is still in the college football playoff. They better have no more than 1 conference loss, if that. You look at this conference schedule, they should run through it. They should run through these teams from a composite talent rating. Miami is there. I know we have cautious optimism, but you also just had the #1 draft pick in the nation, and you got Carson Beck to replace him. You got athletes like you haven't had wearing this uniform in quite a long time everywhere on the damn field. Yeah, there are questions. There are very few perfect teams out there. Are we saying the expectation is to win a national championship? No, we are not. And we know that when Miami is fully back, that'll be the discussion. That'll be the expectation of Miami. But this is supposed to be the launch pad to that discussion next year. I look at this Miami team. I look at them as like they have a shot. The national championship is in Miami Gardens, so hell, get to that game. We'll find out. But they're at the very least, they got to be considered a year away after this year, Pete. They got to be considered that.
The only thing I would push back on what you just said is that they should run through the ACC just because they've never gone unscathed through the ACC. So to say they should run through it when you have SMU on the road, Louisville's going to be a tough game. You don't know which team's going to emerge there that's going to be better than you think they are, like the Syracuse was last year. Obviously, Florida State on the road. So should they have no more than 1 loss in conference? I agree with that. But to say they should run through it, I think is a bit of a stretch.
We all know that the reality, the situation in the ACC is it's always going to be a lot tougher. Hell, even some good Clemson teams that went on to win a national title struggled in conference play. It's a weird conference. But in terms of the fight and the weight class, Miami's going up against teams with, and I know we don't play these games via composite talent ratings, but Miami is a more talented team in every single one of those teams that you've identified.
Let's go through this here. So I want to jump in the schedule. Pete, how old were you in 2004 when we joined the ACC?
I was 10.
10. So you were 10. So since then, when we joined the ACC, we have not won it. So we do not need to be reminded that this is something that just hasn't happened. So there's always something to screw it up historically. So that's the reality that Miami's trying to overcome and reverse. The way the schedule stacks up, though, is favorable. You mentioned the home games. You start with 4. So that's just bizarre in itself, including Notre Dame and Florida, which those are your 2 top out-of-conference games. You want to play them at home. They're going to be full atmospheres because of the opponent. So that's going to be great as far as the way it's set up. Florida followed by Florida State, followed by Louisville is scary to me. Now, the one thing that is interesting about the way this sets up is you have a bye between Florida and Florida State, and you have a bye between Florida State and Louisville. I do worry about Florida State because of just the weird offense they play. Their quarterback, who stinks and is saying the dumbest things in the media, he at least is athletic enough that if he's having a good game, he can give you problems. And the way that the offensive scheme is set up,
he's got to survive that Alabama game.
Yeah, he might not be alive. We got to find who their backup is. And then Louisville, they beat us last year, or we beat them last year, but they beat us last time they were in Hard Rock. They're going to always be tough. But again, at least you have a week to prepare for that offense. After that is where it gets interesting. So you got Stanford at home, which I think you have to win that game. And then we get to this stretch of ACC teams. And one thing I'll say about the ACC, and Stanford's ACC team too, but the better ACC teams, bowl caliber ACC teams. One thing I'll say about the ACC, Miami's been recruiting. If you look at Miami's recruiting rankings, we're battling the Big Ten, we're battling the SEC. And when we lose ground, we go, top 14 instead of top 10, right? It's cause for concern, and it is. But the truth is the ACC is falling further and further from that area every single class. And not only is the ACC struggling to recruit, we've had the best class in the ACC every year with Cristobal. Not only is the ACC struggling to recruit, but their portals situations, every year they lose more and get less. So you look at a team like Louisville.
That's not a sustainable business model.
No, well, go ahead.
No, sorry. New King God's asking why everyone hypes up Louisville so much. When was the last time they had a good defense? They seem to play Miami tough every year. So I don't know if it's hype. It's just what the history.
And I'm
shows.
with you. If we're gonna look over one ACC opponent, it's Stanford. But keep in mind, Stanford helped ruin Miami's playoff chances by beating Louisville because Louisville played a really impressive schedule. They dropped that really dumb game at Stanford, and it took away what would have been a ranked victory for Miami. Keep in mind what everybody was holding against Miami, which was the lack of marquee wins. That win against Louisville becomes ranked all of a sudden. The win against Duke would have been ranked too. Duke was the best team in the last 20 years, I think, to not end ranked. There was a lot of the top 25 is such an arbitrary point when Miami had like 3 wins inside the top 30. But continue. I'm sorry.
No, that's interesting fact. There you go. Kyle's saying Louisville's more regular season wins last season and won the ACC with 19. So yeah, you got to respect that. But if you look at these ACC teams, they lost more than they got. Louisville lost a lot of guys to the pros, and then they lost Tyler Shuck. They lost their best receiver.
Who's their quarterback this year?
Gelati, Miller Moss. They brought him in.
Yeah.
So that's a decent pickup.
The USC guy, right?
Yeah, it was okay. He's not as talented as Tyler Shuck.
He did lose his job, though.
Tyler, by the way, those of you who listen to the podcast, we were saying, Pete, we said it from before the Louisville game. Tyler Shuck is better than a lot of quarterbacks that have a lot more hype. The Quinn Ewers of the world, all those guys who said Kyle Shuck put him on those teams, and he's a superstar. Second-round pick.
You said the same thing about Mendoza going into the into that game with them too.
I'm just saying.
I mean, you were on that one since high school, but
no, but we both said it.
Yeah.
We both said it. We're on both those guys.
Tyler Shuck is probably going to be starting week 1 for the New Orleans Saints.
Miller Moss is worse than those guys. He's a good, accurate passer. He's going to be good in this system, but talent-wise is a downgrade, and they lost some stuff on defense particularly. Then you go to Stanford. They're not good. SMU at SMU. They didn't bring in anybody really important in the portal except for Chris Johnson, who we know for a fact is going to have a 70-yard touchdown run against us.
No doubt.
But they lost a lot. And I don't know if the system, like if I'm playing Miami and I'm SMU, it's not a matchup I love because Miami is going to score a lot. So if you give them the ball a lot with this fast-paced offense, Miami's going to score a lot. And then on defense, Miami has enough pass rush that now they have defensive backs that can make plays. You kill a couple drives, and now there's separation. So, SMU, to me, their style's better against a team that maybe their offense isn't as good because they just kind of wear them out by getting so many possessions.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other offense doesn't execute. Whereas I think a team like Miami that scores is going to be problematic for them. Major talent and difference there. Syracuse lost everybody in their passing game. Plus, they lost their running back who got drafted. They lost a ton of offensive linemen. They lost a ton. I like Steve Angeli, the quarterback they brought in, the backup from Notre Dame. I thought Tennessee should have gotten him. But still, you expect a big step back from Syracuse. They also lost a lot on the defensive side of the ball, which wasn't good to begin with. So they lost a ton of talent, and they've not really brought anybody. In fact, in the portal, forget the NFL, all they lost. They lost their best defensive lineman in the portal to Texas, and they lost their best offensive lineman in the portal to, I believe, USC.
Yeah.
So they lost all of this to graduation and NFL, plus they lost in the portal, and they didn't add in the portal. They added guys that were 5 stars that maybe were bust. Like they added guys that were more projections as opposed to guys that are proven.
And added juice to that game. Not only did you lose to Syracuse last year, and they kept you out of the CFP. You want to avenge that loss, but Frugal Fran has been talking a lot. Frugal Fran talks.
I don't know if you can call him that after all the money he paid for this dude, Russell. So, but anyways, you go keep going down the schedule. NC State, I'm a little worried. It's at home, which is good, but you know that CJ Bailey's going to have like a ridiculous game against a team that didn't recruit him hard enough.
I have a prediction about that game.
Let's hear it.
After that game, a lot of Miami fans are going to be talking about him being the next quarterback at the University of Miami.
If as long as it's a win for us, I'm fine with that outcome. But I do think they lost a ton. They lost your boy Concepcion.
Yep. Texas A&M.
They lost a great offense.
But I'm talking about it before the game. I already taled about it earlier this offseason.
Which one?
that he's
Bailey.
We had those saved.
Quarterback.
Yeah.
Guys, we had timestamp those. But they lost their best offensive lineman to the NFL, second round pick, their left tackle, I believe. They lost some running back depth out to other teams. To what Raphael, I believe, went to Cal. On the defensive side of the ball, we took their best young defensive player in Kamal Bonner. He is now on the Miami Hurricanes. Their entire secondary left to other teams. USC. Where did Brandon Cisse go? He went to the SEC, I believe.
Yeah.
They lost their entire secondary to better programs.
And Dave Doran's been flirting with the all right, bleeper get off the pot type of scenario. NC State's right about where they should be as a program, but his resume suggests they keep failing just before taking that next step. And over the last few seasons, people have been worrying about his job. He always seems to do just enough to keep it, but I don't think we see anything different to expect from him. And that's later in the season. Who knows what type of scenario you're going to be running into. However, if Dave Doran's back's against a wall, that's, again, not an easy game. They play a tough, physical, solid defense. Thankfully, that game is at home. That game would have been really tricky if Miami was going to what is closest to an SEC-type atmosphere in terms of just the sheer craziness from the fan base and the redneckiness of it all. Happy that game is in Miami Gardens.
They have their running back has one of the great names. Their running back has one of the great names in college football.
Who is it?
Hollywood Smothers.
Hollywood Smothers.
That's a generated name in CFB 26.
So you move on to Virginia Tech, another team, again, they lost more than they gained, both NFL-wise and also to the portal. So you look at Virginia Tech, they were more talented last year than I think people think. So Tootin, who killed us, the running back, goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jalen Lane, wide receiver, goes to Washington. Dorian Strong, defensive back, goes to Buffalo.
Man.
Antoine Powell-Ryland, who remember gave Markel Bell a lot of problems early in his tenure at Miami.
Those are really effective players against Miami.
Killed us. Aeneas Peebles, too, which is an undersized defensive tackle. Both these guys at the college level, very good pass rushers. He went to the NFL. So you lose all those guys. Then you look at with the portal. Their left tackle, I believe his name is Chapin. I'm not pronouncing it right. Xavier, the big left tackle they had.
Oh, Xavier Chaplin, yeah.
Chaplin. He went to Auburn, and he was like probably the best tackle or one of the best tackles in the portal. They lost an interior lineman to LSU, who was one of the key pieces of LSU's transfer class. So they lose up front guys, like guys that were not just like, hey, these are backups that are going to these other schools. These are priority portal guys that LSU and Auburn took to be cornerstones of their teams. Like they're the best linemen on those teams, which of course are better teams than Virginia Tech. Talked about all this stuff they lost up to the draft. In the secondary, Mansour Delane, their best, most talented defensive back, goes to LSU. The safety Stroman goes to Notre Dame. We're going to see him the first week. So they got crushed in the portal. The only guy they brought back was the quarterback, who very talented, but has been banged up. I don't think he played very much drones in spring because he had so many injuries. So Virginia Tech has been decimated, but at Virginia Tech, it's November 22nd. It's going to be cold. Pittsburgh, just repeat everything I said about they lost a lot. They bring back the quarterback who's banged up, and then it's also on the road cold.
You look at those three games, physical opponents, historically tough places to play at with the two road games for Miami, especially. We all get Evan Sheriff's PTSD looking at that that last game after Thanksgiving at Pitt. But these are coaches that, if they're not on the hot seat, they're close to it. And if they get off to slow starts this season, I'd bet dollars to donuts that one of these three head coaches aren't going to be coaching this game. And who knows what you have. Maybe you have a team that galvanizes around an intern guy and then it ends up blowing up in your face. Or you can more than likely have a team that is checked out on the season, has already started looking up their next destination, where they're going to go in the transfer portal. So I do think Miami will be the benefactor of some coaches that are constantly talked about in terms of job security.
Yep. Then they couldn't, maybe they're not even the coach for those games.
Mhm.
One thing I'll say too about those, like people say historically, Miami struggles in these cold road games. Very true. Here's one thing I'll say that's different about this era of Miami. We just more size, more physicality up front. I think to a game like Boston College. Remember we played Boston College at the end of 23, and we just completely ran all over him. It was a joke. Now we did have some trouble with Rutgers, but that was more, I think, quarterback driven. Plus, we were just kind of out of it at that point.
Portal, because so many people sat out.
Yeah, that was
that bowl game,
and we still had a chance to win at the end, but that was a tough one. But I think in general, you have stuff to play for. You're playing Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh. We're just so much. They're quicker fronts. We are so much bigger up front with our tailbacks, with our offensive linemen. I could just see us if cold weather's giving Carson Beck problems or whatever. I think those are the games where you just pound it and really rough it up. But look, Beck has played a lot of important November games, much more than our team has. So, yeah, man, I feel pretty good about the way the schedule stacks up. We know the history. We know how these things go versus paper versus reality. But I think in terms of how it shakes out, I can't complain.
D, you just did a pretty deep dive. Now, can we answer the question? Make or break?
Yeah. I mean, make or break. It's got to be, I think you need double-digit wins. And I think really what you need is a playoff appearance. That's really what this is all about. Look, if Carson Beck gets injured, God forbid, or something crazy happens like that, it becomes tougher. You got to, but you still, I think the truth is, man, even with Carson Beck injured, God forbid, let's just say he has a hamstring and misses games, nothing catastrophic. And you're like here, like, let's say you're in the Louisville, Stanford, SMU, you can win some of these, most of these games just by running the ball.
And I know Emory was put in a pretty tough spot in that bowl game, and everyone's kind of down on Emory. Keep in mind, Emory's beaten Clemson.
Right.
Like, Emory has that on his resume. You're skeptical there. I know that he played with some handcuffs on him, but in that second half, they did count on him to make some throws, and he made the throws. Miami beat Clemson. Doesn't happen very often in the 21st century, and they did so with Emory Williams at quarterback.
That Clemson.
Yeah, I understand.
I mean, if they played them in the same situation, like this team.
Kate Klubnik, TJ Parker, Peter Woods, all those guys were out there.
But that wasn't the. I mean,
they had that white running back.
Klubnik has made himself a way different player now.
No, he's improved.
What he is then.
He's improved. But anyway, so we'll see, man. I agree with Sergio. SMU made the ACC championship their first year. If not this year, when? Just got to get it done, man.
TJ's asking if QB2 is a camp out or is it Emory's job. I'm sure that they will put on that it's a battle. I have a hard time believing that Emory stayed behind to be the third string quarterback.
Yeah, and he was somebody that was prioritized. And again, listen, I'm not here to defend or say this is the right or wrong thing. I think I do agree, because I've heard this comment. I think it's accurate. Like, hey, if you believe so much in Emory, why did you not let him throw in some of these games? There's merit to that line of thinking. But I can tell you that Miami fought to keep him. So if they wanted to let him go and just let Nickel be the backup, they would have said, go with God, get out of here, and then let Nickel just get the job. They did not do that. So read into that what you will. I understand the comment that, hey, if you believe so much in Emory, why don't you let him ever throw, like against Iowa State, which was not a killer defense. But yeah, that's that. I can tell you that's what they do.
Josh Gross, I think this is a little revisionist when he says if Emory doesn't break his arm, we win against FSU and Tally. I think a credit to Emory Williams is they were very much in that game. They stuck to a game plan. And if you remember, there was a big-time throw from Emory Williams, whether it was misplayed by the DBs or not. He threaded the ball between two defenders that were closing in on the ball, and he made a big-time throw that was essential to Miami staying in that game. I don't know if he had enough juice to bring Miami all the way down the field. The offense still, that throw notwithstanding, like they still looked limited. Incredible toughness on that run, literally sacrificed his body. I know TBD comes in there and throws a pick, and that felt like, that was prophecy fulfilled. I don't think Emory wins that game, but that doesn't take away from the fact that Emory, in games against blue bloods of the football ACC division, Clemson, Florida State, and Florida State was really good that year. Emory Williams either won or was hanging tough with Miami. So God forbid there's an injury to Carson Beck. Emory's going to be the guy, and Miami has shown in previous years with less talent around them that they can play They can play with them and they can be in games late in the end. And I understand we have a bad taste in our mouth from that Pop-Tart Bowl. It's a weird situation for Emory. There weren't receivers on the field that you would recognize by that point in the game. It's an odd game. It was unfortunate. We got to see it, and we have Carson Beck now at quarterback because of it, but I'm not willing to hold that totally against Emory Williams, understanding the position, but I'm very happy that we have Carson Beck too.
Very interesting point from Kyle, and I want to get to this. Kyle saying 2026 Miami is going to be loaded. Jordan Lyle, Marty Brown's getting a lot of love. Elijah Lofton, JoJo Trader, Malachi Tony, Josh Moore, Justin Scott, 5-star. Armando Blunt, 5-star.
It's a lot of retention right
Lightfoot,
there, man.
Live 5-star. Hayden Lowe, 5-star.
Expensive.
OJ, Lucas, and Poyser. OJ and Poyser, both freshman All-America. Lucas probably could have been a freshman All-America. Pete, you anticipated what I'm going to say. We're focused a lot on, let's say, Russell and Cooper, right? Calvin Russell, Derek Cooper, 7-figure local players. Cooper, I think, really a priority. I would not, by the way, with Cooper, there's still time on the clock. I would believe anything that happens with Derek Cooper with this much time on the clock before Sunday when he makes his commitment. So put that pin in that one. But in general, I think this is why Miami has to win this year and why Miami's record and performance this year is going to affect all the perceptions of everything, including recruiting. So, for example, let's say Derek Cooper goes to Texas, which is what I'd predict. But again, I caution everybody, that one's not done. Still communication there. I think he goes to Texas, not done. So, I don't think Miami didn't have money for these guys, but there's always a number you can go to. So if Miami does not go to that number with these players because they think it's too high or whatever, and then they win and have a successful season, go to the play, let's say win the ACC. If they win the ACC, the names that you just listed, Kyle, are going to have a big part of that. They're going to be highly valuable players. And then it's common sense. Yeah, of course, you want to save money for those guys because if you're paying somebody from their same zip code all this other money that hasn't even played yet, the price on those guys is going to be astronomical, and you could be rated. And who knows what the cap and what happens in the future. Now, if you don't win and some of those guys disappoint and not as good, that all goes out the window. And people are saying, by the way, you disappointed and you lost on all these other local recruits again. So it's interesting how the season is going to affect perception. But I think with these guys, you're on the right track, which is if we have, let's say, an ACC championship season, those names, Jordan Lyle, Elijah Lofton, Trader, Malachi Tony, all the 5-star defensive linemen, the defensive backs, they're going to be big name players going into their draft eligible years, or even in some of those cases, their second year with the 2026 Miami Hurricanes. Plus, you might need a quarterback too. So you might need to pay like a CJ Bailey if someone else doesn't develop. So keep in mind that it's always about not just what's in front of you, but also what's coming down the pike. And I hope, Kyle, that we're in a position where we're dying to pay these players. Because that's not necessarily guaranteed either.
There's a narrative going on right now in the comments that I want to get out against. And you guys are right to say Brashard Smith made a key contribution against Clemson. He won that game. I think Brashard Smith did fumble that ball at the goal line. We were lucky to recover. Yeah, that's all right.
Jacoby George, right? Was he the one that ran down and got that ball?
Yeah.
Good hustle play.
Good hustle play from a guy that between the years we had a lot of questions about. Ruben Bain, absolutely dominant down the stretch. Was incredible. You want to say defense won that game. Guys, Miami, I know Cam Ward changed the math for you, but you have a lot of NIL invested in this entire team. You have a lot of money allegedly invested in Carson Beck. There are going to be games where the defense wins the game for you. Even with Carson Beck there at quarterback, you need timely stops. You need big-time contributions from other guys you've developed and invested in. If we get into a situation where Emory Williams is in at quarterback, you're damn right the defense is going to need to win some games. You're damn right you're going to need some guy flashing. You're going to need Mark Fletcher to win you a game. All you need from Emory really in that situation is don't lose the game. Don't lose the game. That's why we've elevated the talent around him. And I think in terms of a backup, I like how Miami's positioned within its conference. Yes, it would be a big drop-off. I am not an Emory guy. I am happy we have Carson Beck, but I'm also not going to be the type of guy that says Charlotte is still out of the question if there is an injury to Carson Beck. This team, from a talent standpoint, overall has been elevated, and Miami has the running backs to control the games and control the games from the line of scrimmage. And I think the expectations, college football playoff, high-end ceiling, that all naturally would come down with an injury to Carson Beck, or say Carson Beck just isn't fully back yet from that arm injury that he sustained. But I still think Miami should be pretty well positioned. Look, this was a Miami team that, until Carson Beck took his name out of the draft consideration, was ready to roll into this season with Emory Williams. And everybody in the comments that is looking to pick him apart, yeah, we would have had our questions. You would have turned and started looking at the optimistic parts of his game, which is what I'm highlighting. FSU performance, Clemson performance. Those are big name teams, and Emory performed admirably in situations where people didn't expect much from him.
So I want to focus. You talked about Clemson game. One of the star players of that game was clearly Ruben Bain, right? So let's focus on Ruben Bain for a second here. I'm pulling up from Pro Football Focus, which, kind of hit or miss. I think they're better with defensive linemen, particularly edge players and other positions, because it's more of an isolated matchup situation, easier to kind of grade. But they have Ruben Bain as a number 15th player in college football. So he's in for a huge season. Should remind many why he's a first-round caliber talent now that he's fully healthy. I saw Ruben Bain on a list for Dane Brugler, who Pete knows, who does a really good job with the athletic and draft coverage. Probably one of the more legitimate draft guys. Sometimes you see these preseason rankings that can get kind of wonky in retrospect. He's usually pretty solid. He had Bain basically just like right outside the first round. And he said, it's really 23 versus 24. Some of the production stuff just needs to get more sacks, basically. So that is going to be an interesting player to watch expectation-wise. I talked to a source at Miami who said that they think that Ruben Bain in this defense, there's going to be a lot less stunting, a lot of just kind of line up here, beat your guy up, is going to be winning awards, right? That kind of season if he stays healthy, just holding awards, getting the utmost accolades as a defensive end, which of course would probably propel him into the first round, even with his body type. Just he's so powerful. If he produces, I think he'll be a first-round pick, maybe a high one. So Ruben Bain, some of the we watched all season. We saw him in Cal when he came back. We were both there in person, saw him over the course of the year. What are your expectations, Mike, for a Ruben Bain?
I got to be honest, very disappointed with his performance last year. Now, you can explain it away with that hamstring injury week 1 against Florida. He felt that all season long, and then the defense got worse as the season went on, but that was a disappointing season. I think Ruben Bain set the expectations high because of his performance. That Clemson game was as dominant as we've ever seen, especially from a freshman at Miami. I know how much Mario Cristobal valued this young man even in high school. This was supposed to be one of the 4 corners of Miami being brought back. Mark Fletcher was another one of those names that coach invoked as locker room guys that are just beast dogs out there, that are the type of player that used to be at Miami, that Miami needs to get back to getting. Last year was very strange for Ruben Bain. Last year was a disappointment for Ruben Bain. There were plenty of times Ruben Bain's freshman year that I would tap my wife on the shoulder and be like, it's number 4's time right now. And he would answer the bell. I did that about a dozen times last year. He didn't answer the bell, mostly because he wasn't there for a lot of the season too. And in all fairness to him, hopefully he stays healthy this year. If he doesn't, and he has to fight through some things, he's got to fight through them a lot more effectively than he did last year. Last year was a major disappointment, I think, in terms of production, big playability. Miami had a defense that was porous. One thing that can help alleviate some of that is big-time timely turnovers, pressures, strip sacks. We weren't getting that from this defense. Even when Kitchens was back there, Miami didn't have the greatest defense, but he would alleviate a lot of those. In 2017, that wasn't a great defense. It was great because they forced turnovers at an insane clip, and they mitigated some of their weaknesses. If Miami's not going to have this stellar 95 overall defense on CFB 26, they need to have timely turnovers, and Ruben Bain's a big part of that. Even if it's not him strip sacking the quarterback, it's the pressure that he creates, the havoc that he creates for that quarterback, that the quarterback underthrows something, makes a misread, and another person can benefit from what Ruben Bain did. This defense sorely needed the Ruben Bain of that freshman year. So my expectations is, at the very least, give me freshman Ruben Bain back.
P, what do you think about Bain as an NFL prospect? I know you know about Brugler. Again, I think that's pretty fair, probably like right on that first round, second round border. He did have pretty decent tape last year. Louisville, he played unbelievable. So I don't think it was like last year he sucked. But
yeah, I just think there's going to be a conundrum with him as a prospect because of his physicals that he's going to have to dominate to overcome that and to cement himself as a first round pick. So it's some teams aren't going to really consider him because they need a certain body type to play in their scheme. Other teams aren't going to care at all, and they're going to say, I want him. He's a top 5 football player in the country. But you're talking about it as a prospect. It's a different discussion. So he needs to be dominant to be able to alleviate those, because the guys who aren't the perfect height, weight, speed, they have to be so overwhelmingly better than everyone else on the field that it overcomes that.
Well, I think one area where Bain is going to get a lot of NFL love is his power is elite.
Mm-hmm.
Elite. You saw it against Clemson. That's when he tossed the guy. Louisville, probably one of the more powerful individual performances you'll ever see. I think that'll play up even more in this new defense where he's not flying around as much with all these crazy stunts. So I think the power part, even though he doesn't have, like you said, Pete, the 6'6" length, right? He's not the tallest. He's pretty, I don't know how long his arms are, but he's definitely not tall. But the power aspect, I know a lot of NFL coaches and scouts will say, when it comes to the trenches, you really start with power. And I think, as I've watched more, at least in college, guys fail and succeed. Power is so much of a bigger factor than people talk about. When I say power, I don't mean like weight room strength necessarily. I mean the ability to knock the other side back. That's really what I mean by power. And part of that is leverage, because you can get low and get under them. Part of that is hand strength. Some of that's just kind of fast twitch muscle. A lot of it's also just your lower body strength. Within Ruben Bain's case, he gets low, he's explosive, and he has just a very big lower body. So the ability to just knock people back, I think, is something that both him and Francis excel at. Francis has the prototypical frame. That's easier to slide into that first round. Bain has to overcome the frame stuff, but I think the power, if he produces and he gets 10 sacks plus, I think he will be in the first round just because of that power. And if I were to throw a comp on him, a Will Anderson, Will Anderson is not Myles Garrett in terms of his body, but because he's so consistently powerful, run against the pass, he has such great intangibles, which Bain does as well, and he's able to get to the quarterback. I think Will Anderson, the success he's had as a leader of that defense, number 3 overall pick to the Houston Texans. I'm not saying Bain will go that high, but if you look at Will Anderson's, let me look at his combine.
Again, it's a tough comparison for you to make, because he's 6'3.5", 6'4", and I don't know that.
Well, I'll give you Will Anderson's numbers here, Pete. So Will Anderson, 6'3 1/3, or 6'3 3/4, which is less than 50 percentile. I think Bain probably will come
6'3 3/4. That's 6'4".
And I think Bain will probably be an inch shorter.
You think he's 6'3"?
Yeah. Weight 253. He plays a lot bigger than that, but that's on the lighter side. Bain, I think, is going to be in that 275 range when he runs for this combine, if maybe more. Then 10-yard split, 1.6, 40-yard dash in that 4.6 range. Bain, I don't think is going to run that 4.6. It's probably more in that 4.8, if I had to guess.
I don't think the body types are all that similar. I don't think that Bain is as tall or long as him.
Well, I want to ask you guys something that Joseph Borges picks out here. Let's remember that Syracuse game one more time. I know it's difficult, but Miami built that 21-0 lead, not just because of their stellar offense, but if you remember that first quarter, defense was getting after it at a pretty good clip, especially for what they had told you throughout the season. It was really encouraging. Then they lost steam, and that was coupled with McCord realizing, I'm just going to take a 3-step drop and throw a fade pattern to the sideline and take advantage of these one-on-one matchups, because Guidry keeps blitzing the safety for some godforsaken reason and stunting the defensive linemen. One thing that we didn't really get last year as we got into the teeth of our schedule and latter parts of the season was there weren't coverage sacks, D.
No.
The defensive line, yeah, they were disappointing, but they didn't get help from the secondary whatsoever. The secondary didn't force a quarterback to hold the ball an extra second. If anything, they incentivize a quarterback because of our tendencies to get rid of the ball quickly, and it's hard to get sacks when the quarterbacks are getting rid of the ball that quickly.
I think you think to Marshall, because Guidry was at Marshall, right? That's what we hired him, because he had a top 10 defense at Marshall. They beat Notre Dame. So pretty good. Those are good things. That's why Miami, I was hyping that up when we got Guidry. It was obviously a great part of his resume. When you take a step back and look at our personnel last year, Marshall, their strength on that team was cornerback. They had NFL corners, or at least guys that had a chance at the NFL. They played a lot of man covers. They could do that. they were weaker up front because it's Marshall. They're not going to have a lot of NFL defensive linemen running around. We last year were the opposite. We had Tyler Barron, who was drafted high. Ruben Bain, drafted 5th round. It could have been drafted a lot higher if he played better. And certainly body type wise, elite. Ruben Bain, potential 1st round pick. Simeon Barrow, not an NFL guy, but a first team All ACC player. Messidor. So you had guys that were not available to someone at Marshall, right? Necessarily. And you had bad corners. Marshall probably had better. Guidry probably, and in fact, I heard him tell people this now that he's gone. I think we can tell the story that Guidry was telling people, I had better corners at Marshall than I do at Miami. So you look at what worked for Marshall, a lot of stunts in games up front because you don't have the body types to just win. And then good coverage on the back end to give you a little more time from a coverage standpoint. Here it was inverted. We could have won one-on-one with Bain, with Messidor, with Barron, but we didn't really play that way. We had him running around like it was Marshall, and then the secondary under-talented. So I think that combination really hurt us in Guidry's defense. Not Guidry forgot how to coach between Marshall and Miami. Fit, personnel, adjusting to personnel, and just being a little stubborn probably when it came time to make adjustments.
Wow, how meat and potatoes has this episode been?
I know,
what
man.
an upset.
I've been wanting to get off the rails the whole time.
Listen, we've
but
got
I
almost
haven't had
a thousand live now. So
we're giving them what they want.
And subscribe to the show. Don't forget about Meat and Potatoes, Anajar and Levine. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Now, 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. And then you talk about meat and potatoes.
There we go. I thought that was the natural meat and potatoes transition.
Well, you listen. If you want meat or potatoes and potatoes, I want
a papadiana of football.
There you go.
A football-shaped papadiana.
That is meat and potatoes in one item. That, in fact, I think is that's probably the only item that is meat and potatoes in one specific item, which is a papadiana. That is a fried ball of potato with ground beef in the middle.
Yes. Delightful.
Which you can, of course, get at Islas Canarias Cuban Express.
Eat it like an apple.
40 plus, yeah, a little softer than that. Crispy on the outside, soft and warm on the inside.
Like me.
There it is. Islas Canarias Cuban Express, 40 plus years in operation. 7 different types of croquetas. You got the sandwiches. You got the cubaritos, the tequeños, which are Venezuelan, but we're cornering the market on all Hispanic food here at Islas. You got the bowls, all kinds of Cuban coffee, juices. You name it, they got it at Islas Canarias Cuban Express. And shout out to Eileen Andrade, who's getting married this weekend in Spain. Shout out to her, and congratulations to her and her new family over there in Spain. I'm sure that'll go well. And yeah, man,
fantastic. I assume next week we're going to be doing our live broadcast from Islas Canarias.
We're working on it.
Okay.
They're in Spain right now, so
yeah. Okay. So it's tough to return the calls. We know that the Dayland Dining Pavilion has some kind of red tape around it.
I talked about it. I went to the Dayland Dining Pavilion last week, and it was like how Paris must have appeared to people in like the 1890s is how the Dayland Dining Pavilion came off when I was there. I mean, you had not only Islas is sort of like the tent pole, the foundational piece, the best restaurant in the dining pavilion, but you had all kinds of stuff. You had Dubai chocolate, which is $30 a pop. Have you ever had Dubai chocolate?
I know that it's having a moment right now.
Delicious.
Pete, you can explain it. And I will be taking my family to dinner at the Dayland Dining Pavilion next week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm spending a lot of time in that area next week. So,
all right, there you go.
And we're gonna have some dinner there. We've already carved out the plans.
Well, you know where to go. Pete, what's up with the Dubai chocolate? It's $30.
You got like phyllo dough in the middle. It's delicious, man. It's worth every penny. I am a big supporter of the Middle Eastern cuisine.
I usually am too, but I'm $30 chocolate is a little rich.
I don't know, man. I'm getting it for $23 by my way. So
you have a Dubai Chocolate Connect? Where's that at?
I'll drop the plug for you after the show, man. I don't know if I want to give it away on the air, and the prices might start going up, man.
They start dealing this stuff on the black market because $30 to buy in a mall is tough.
We have a core inflation chat if you want to get in, Pete.
Let's go. Let's see what's going on here. Vladi's saying, I would have fired Guidry for bringing Deani Hill to be on this team. I mean, like that Deani Hill, he did what he was supposed to do. But I wouldn't say he was like the cause of the problem. He just wasn't really the solution.
He wasn't really counted on to be that either, right?
Yeah, no. He was there for
he did what he was brought in to do.
Oh, yeah. So, but I think we're at a football topic. It's 1 minute. It's 1 hour. Are we out of football? Pete, if you got anything in your pocket? You want to talk about that? We do 2003 tomorrow. Mike, or how close were you following recruiting in 2003?
I wasn't.
Yeah. I know our boy, Brian Monroe, was there in that class. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that tomorrow as we go down memory lane. A pretty sad memory lane. We did get a punter out of it. Shout out to Brian Monroe, but
Yes.
a tough class in 2003. Not Ruben Bain, Andrew Bain, Cyrone Williams never really got going on the offensive line. Kyle Wright, of course, struggled mightily. There were a lot of problems in that 2003 class. So as we do our recruiting class reviews, which we've been doing at the end of these shows, it's going to get a little darker as time goes on. We started with 2001. It was all sunshines and rainbows. 2002 got worse. 2003 gets a lot worse. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But good question from 305 Shaman. More likely, pancake starter in 2026 or pancake portal 26? I think starter. I think he was kept around to start. I know Alex Mirabal is a big fan of what he does. So I think pancake starter in 2026.
Yeah, that's bold. I think if you were worried about pancake portaling the last 2 years, he probably would have had the opportunity to, right? He came in with a lot of fanfare, big NIL deal, no doubt, and hasn't seen the field really all that much. If you're worried about him being the type of guy that would portal, like I said, the opportunities have been there for him and he's stuck around. In fact, he's graduated from the University of Miami. He seems to be a bright guy, seems to be committed to this developmental plan, and it's proven. There's more than proof of concept when it comes to Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal's ability to get guys into the next level. And I think everything that I've heard is Pancake Concho's married to the plan.
Delane Simmons says, I got the Middle East Chocolate Connect coming out of Dubai. Made a deployment friend that I still talk to over there. As always, man, Delane, thank you for your service. And I think you got to start selling those things like bootleg style, like Frank Lucas style. Bring over those chocolates, sell them for $15 a pop instead of 30. And man, you can undercut these guys. There's no way those chocolate bars should be costing $30 based on what's in them.
I have an admission to make. I've never had a Dubai chocolate. I mean, it's green. I've seen what's this green chocolate here? Should I try that? But I like pistachios. Is it the same
it's
thing?
like phyllo dough or phyllo dough.
What is that?
It's like it's like, you ever had kanafe?
Okay. I'm not. I don't know which. I don't have these reference points.
Oh well, it's like a skinny dough. That's
okay.
Like, get a lot
so
of it.
So it's dough on top of chocolate.
Yeah, but
why is it green?
It's not like heavy dough. It's hard to describe.
Okay, I guess I'll just have to bite the bullet and try it.
Yeah.
For $37.
Or bite the Dubai chocolate.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, let's get into some nonsense.
Wait, hold on. This is true. I just checked this. I thought it was fake. It's actually true. And we won't get into it too much because it's got to be delicate here. Mississippi State has a punter that's committed to the class of 27 that converted to Islam. That's a white guy named Gunner.
Yep.
Huh. You can invite him to the Saudi Arabian chat. This guy definitely's had Dubai chocolate. Gunner Gillentine.
Mm-hmm. I imagine that's going well for him in Mississippi.
Mississippi State committed. Apparently, he's one of the best punters in the country. Gunner Gillentine is committed to Mississippi State, and he is he converted to Islam.
We sent it in the chat a few times.
Yeah, in the Saudi chat.
Wow, from Petal, Mississippi. Huh.
Yeah. I'm surprised he's not our avatar yet. That's our guy.
Soon.
Delane saying inflation's crazy. Yeah, man. $30 chocolates. Let's get this thing. Let's get this thing right. Jake Campbell bringing us back to football here. He says, give us your leading receiver for 2026. Carson Beck over under 3,500 yards. Will we have a 1,000-yard rusher? Who is the MVP of the defense? Torres, my guy.
Wow, I love these questions.
Are you ready to start? Who wants to take this first?
Leading receiver, CJ Daniels. Carson Beck over 3,500 yards. Yes, on a 1,000-yard rusher. MVP of the defense, Justin Scott.
Wow. Your first two answers are my first two answers, and I think it's got to be Ruben Bain for Miami to get to where it needs to go.
All right, so Petal's Delane Simmons' hometown, man. What's going on out there that you got kids named Gunner converting to Islam, man? That's a wild place.
Most valuable player, Ruben Bain. Most important player, Ruben Bain. Biggest improvement on the team year over year from where we were last year, Xavier Lucas. In terms of what we were getting out of our corners last year, Xavier Lucas seems to be a big time upgrade. So I think we'll look at that and say that's the biggest change in Miami's defense year over year.
I'm not going to hot take it. I kind of agree with you guys. So yeah, leading receiver for 2026, I would say would be CJ Daniels, I think, just because I think JoJo Trader will be the breakout, the big play guy, but CJ Daniels and Beck, they're both older. I think they're both over 23 years old. Beck loves those kind of contested catch receivers. He loves Colby Young before Colby Young got into his legal troubles. So I think that's going to be what you'll see with Daniels. It'll be like a safety blanket there. Although I think in terms of like the best receiver, like as far as NFL and like explosive plays and highlights, I think that'll be Trader. Over under 3,500 yards. I'm saying over because I think we'll play enough games. We play 14 games or more, he'll get over 3,500 yards for sure. 1,000-yard rusher, kind of similar. Depends on how many games we play, but I'm going to say no because of the three-headed monster that we have. Plus, remember, Elijah Lofton can run the ball as well. Elijah Lofton will have carries this year. MVP of the defense, I agree with Ruben Bain. Important guys, Justin Scott, Mo Torre, Xavier Lucas. So I'm kind of repeating what you guys said, but I agree with that.
I mean, we went first.
SK saying, what's up with Xavier Lucas, 78 overall in the video game? I don't know. Pro Football Focus just got it wrong. They suck at evaluating corners. I would say with Lucas, I mean, they sued us because he's so good.
Yeah,
So
that should be the indicator.
He's 200 pounds. There was a 4.3, and they sued us because he's so good. First lawsuit ever in the history of the portal.
Yeah, and people that have been out in practice say he's a real deal.
Yeah, I can confirm that there. Brandon Rosenbaum. Notre Dame will be very good at having as a top 5 team. Don't agree with Mike Ryan on them. I actually think they have a chance to be better than last year.
Really?
Only possible weakness they have is a new QB. I would agree with you, Brandon. But I think
that's a big possible weakness.
And also, do not underestimate Riley Leonard. First of all, Riley Leonard got drafted, number 1.
Gamer.
Number 2, we talked about how good Notre Dame's running game was, and Notre Dame's running game was outstanding.
He was a big part of that too.
He ran every single third and short. He was the running.
I think you
threat.
could say he's like a better Malik for what Malik was at Rozier was at Miami for that team, and Notre Dame's team was better than what that Miami team was.
Oh yeah,
like he was like a supercharged version of that sort of quarterback.
Grit.
He was. The leadership was outstanding. He has enough passing that, again, he got drafted. He didn't get drafted to the pros to play receiver. Someone thinks they can develop as a passer. And it's just like every time they got into those third down situations, he would run and kill you. And then also set up Jeremiah Love, because Jeremiah Love can run you over. He's not like a Reggie Bush that's just kind of weak.
No, he had a great short yardage run on a bum knee. One of the great short yardage runs you'll ever see. It's like that and Marion Barber, that 1-2 yard gain he had as a Dallas Cowboy.
Plus, they have other running backs as well. So they have just a good running game in general, but you can't remove Riley Leonard from that running game. He not only had his own runs, but the threat of his run kind of set up the other runs as well. So I think that Carr may eventually surpass him as a passer, and you have better receivers this year, but I don't think that's going to be game 1. So from the Notre Dame team that we're playing, which might be different than what's in the playoff, I think the passing should be neutral because of Carr's inexperience. And then the running will be worse because Riley Leonard was such a good runner. But at the end of the season, if he's passing it well, they got good receivers, they got a great offensive line, they got good good running backs. Their defense is always going to be good, so they'll be legit.
Yeah,
you can God saying don't disrespect Reggie Bush. Love's not better than Reggie. I have a couple guys that I always hate on.
He has a take about Reggie Bush and Clinton Portis.
I've said this from the beginning. So Reggie Bush is a guy that when everybody says the best prospect since Barry Sanders or whatever nonsense they were saying at the time, this is not hindsight. I said, listen, when they needed real runs, big boy runs, they brought in Lendale White. If you're the best running back around, they don't do that. When Reggie Bush got tackled, he was landing on his side or on his back. He was never landing forward on his stomach. He just lacked a little bit of power there. Everybody got excited because it's a highlight culture. He had these great runs against Fresno State. Oh, Reggie Bush wouldn't have been a top. I mean, let's see. Where would you rank in terms of Miami backs? He's not better than Gore. He's not better than Edgar and James just since 98. He's not better than Edge. He's not better than Gore. He's not better than McGay. He's not better than Portis. So would it be 5th? Maybe. I think Lamar Miller was probably better than him. I mean, if we're being honest, let's see. What's Lamar Miller got injured. So let's see. Just going to their stats in the pros. I mean, Lamar Miller had an injury, which set him back. But I mean, Reggie Bush ran for. Okay, so here we go. So here's Reggie Bush's career rushing stats. 5,490 yards, and his yards per carry was 4.3. Lamar Miller in the NFL, 5,800. So 400 yards more for Lamar Miller in 3 less years. And same yards per carry. But Bush was a good receiver. But running, he lacked toughness. He'd run good against good teams or bad teams when he got like a 5-yard head start with this great offensive line. Then he could just use his track stuff and do all the fancy stuff. But when you talk about actual football, and you can God saying, yeah, I still watch his highlights were great. I like guys that go 7 yards and are breaking tackles and are keeping you ahead of the sticks instead of losing 2 and then getting 70 against a bad team. But that was always my take on Reggie Bush. I never bought the hype. I think he was just completely overrated because of the highlights. And,
I wanted to get to the comment I put up there, D, from Sergio Sanchez, a question asking, what does Beck have to do to get invited to the Heisman ceremony? Ward had 4,300 yards and 39 touchdowns. I think last year was a weird one. With the way that things were trending for Travis Hunter, it was that was an extraordinary situation with the media around it. I'm not here to debate whether he deserved it or not, but that was always going to be a tough one to win for that reason. I will say, if you look back at that season for Ward and then looking ahead here for Beck, I think probably what he lacked was like a big signature win because of how the season played out. The Florida game did not end up meaning much in the grand scheme of things. You have opportunities now, if you're Beck, where you have this national game against Notre Dame that you expect Notre Dame to be a double-digit win team no matter what happens this year.
Man, I don't know.
Well,
I don't know. I mean, here's their schedule for their first 5 opponents before October 4th. At Miami, Texas A&M, at Arkansas, hosting Boise State. Those are 4 of their first 5 opponents. They could very well be making a lateral move in terms of talent and still not have as good a season as last year. That is a very tough schedule out the gates. And then the rest of the schedule, we had plenty of concerns about the NC State game. They have a rivalry game against USC, a game at Bill O'Brien. There's a lot of spots on this schedule where Notre Dame can slip up for a head coach that whenever he does have the privilege of being a double-digit favorite, finds ways to blow it. He has blown a lot of games as a big-time favorite over at Notre Dame. So you can take nothing for granted, even as impressive as they were last year. I'm sorry.
So either way, you have opportunities against Notre Dame. Florida, we'll see how what ends up becoming of them this season. We understand they have the preseason hype again, but you have some opportunities there, and then don't slip up against Georgia Tech. It was already in the bag that he wasn't going to win it before the Syracuse game. I thought, but yeah. Don't lose to Syracuse. As much as those losses aren't on him, that's sometimes you talk about what is said here. The comment here that said they don't let Hurricanes win Heisman. Simple as that. I don't know that it goes that far, but you can't give them any other reason to try to take it away from you.
No, if Cam Ward had the ability to have these games, marquee games, Sunday night, week 1 of the college football season, standalone TV window, a better Florida team. We'll see what kind of shape Florida is in by the time they roll into Miami Gardens. But those are already 2 games that are much bigger in magnitude and size than anything Cam Ward had. Florida is at week 1 at the Swamp. Obviously, there are expectations there. The expectations from this year's Florida compared to last are way different.
Yeah, we're talking about the Heisman ceremony. I think it's going to be the first game. Like Cam Ward kind of cemented his Heisman ceremony in game 1. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he kept it up. But I think once he did that on national TV to the Gators and did it the way he did, kind of taunting everybody, they had that play to Jacoby George rolling left. That gave him the upper hand to go to the ceremony. He just had to not lose it. So I think with Beck, first game, if he goes out there and balls, there's questions about his arm, there's questions about his money, there's questions about his Lamborghini, there's questions about his girlfriend, whatever. If he goes out there the first game, throwing the ball like he can and beats Notre Dame and does it while looking good, he's going to be at every conversation, whether it's first overall pick, Heisman, you name it, from there on out, because he's talked about a lot. So it's really about that first game, I think, with Carson Beck. I would like to see Carson Beck, if he does succeed in that game. Let's say he throws a touchdown to put the game away. I would like to see him incorporate a celebration, perhaps like a money sign or something, or maybe like this kind of like some sort of money related celebration.
He's branding.
You saw Aaron Rodgers with the belt, because Aaron Rodgers was always kind of known as.
Hold on a second. Yeah. Mike, are you seeing what's happening right now?
What
he's doing? This is very against his character as a quarterback.
He's identifying quarterbacks. First off, he's telling the tatted up quarterback, you're already behind the 8 ball with D-Money when you're the tatted up quarterback, the swaggy tatted up quarterback. Now he wants him to do Money Man Zellfingers. What are you doing?
What he is, man. Beck is not going to be, Trevor Lawrence, right? So that's just not going to happen. So you might as well just embrace it at this point, especially if you want to go to the Heisman and get some more attention. Me personally, how I like my quarterbacks.
Maybe you should do clicks.
What's up?
Just taking a mouse and getting clicks. That's his.
Would you say aggregating?
Cam Ward Selly, instead of like doing this, you could just do this.
Would you say bad faith engagement farming, like whatever was going on earlier? Yeah. So we'll see with
farming engagement paradise for bad faith engagement.
Along those lines.
Yeah. Exactly. So we'll see, man. But he's got a chance. It's all about the first game. If he kind of starts slow, no one will be thinking about him. If he starts fast and balls, he's going to be in the top of the conversation. That first weekend, right? Nussmeier's against Clemson, which that's going to be an interesting game. I actually think it's a good matchup for Clemson because LSU doesn't run the ball well.
Castellanos is against Alabama.
What did Deontay Lawson say? All disrespect is going to be accounted for, or something like that.
Yep.
I'm going to make sure I hate appropriately on Castellanos now that I know he's Cuban, because every time I hype up a Cuban player like Mendoza, who, by the way, continues to get first-round buzz, every time I hype a Cuban player, they're like, oh, you're just a Hispanic homer. I'm going to make sure I give Castellanos his proper amount of hate so I can kill that narrative, because I do think he stinks and is insane with things he's saying.
Johnny Lagoon says, should we have a YouTube crew follow Beck all year like Hunter had? You know what? Cam actually did have his documentary crew following him for a lot of the season last year. We'll get that footage here in the coming months in the 0-star documentary. It wasn't broadcast to YouTube every week.
Did you see that video of Cam Ward and Xavier Restrepo? Xavier Restrepo was throwing Cam Ward's football on the ground, and Cam Ward, I don't think he was joking. He says, throw my football on the ground one more time, I'm going to kick your ass.
One thing about Cam Ward, he is around cameras a lot. Here's what I'll say about Cam Ward. He acts the same way on the camera that he does off the camera. So, like, he gets filmed a lot, but he does not perform to the cameras. I can tell you that right now. The way he acts in those videos with Restrepo,
that was real.
Every time I'm around him, that's how he acts. When he acts, I mean, what was that after the one game where they interviewed him and he was dropping N-bombs and Cam Gorby was having a heart attack in the UMSID. That was he was just being natural, like that's just kind of how he acts. So that's the best thing to me about Cam Ward is authenticity. And I've said it before, I've never met someone that doesn't like Cam Ward. And I think when you watch him, you like what you see because that's what you get.
All right, let's talk some wrestling.
Let's do it, baby.
All right, you go first.
So you got the graphic ready, Pete?
Yes.
You got a rest of the week this week, Pete?
Listen, I like to be a surprise.
All right,
but normally you ask like in the middle of it, and I just jump out and do it. But,
okay, all right.
But you know what? Since you did it, and you said it already, why don't I go first?
Let's go.
All right,
we're gonna start today with a few things that you love: the Florida products.
Yep.
And the dance background. We're gonna go with Naomi from Sanford, Florida. Former dancer for Flow Rider, I may let you know, but I'm saying it because this week, in honor of the WWE Evolution event from the last weekend, I'm going with now 3-time world champ Naomi.
Let's go.
Let's ignore the fact that she lost earlier in the night to Jade. We'll just get that out of our memory. One of the best entrances in the business for a while. It's what made her popular at first. She's always been a fun character, someone I love rooting for. It's that athleticism, man. You talk about the dance background, D. Super athletic, creative. It feels like she's coming up with stuff in the middle of it. Like it's not choreographed. Doesn't feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's a dance background, like I said.
Yeah.
Almost 38 years old now, so listen, she's still moving and grooving out there. Oldest female to hold this title. I'm hoping we get one last good run out of her now as a heel because I think it'll be good to see this different side of her.
Yeah, you were beaming Sunday. You were texting me like crazy after she cashed in at Evolution. I know you've been a big supporter of hers for a very long time.
Yeah. It's the accuracy and it's the depth of detail that he brings to these breakdowns, and not one detail is wrong.
She had a dance background, huh?
Yes, she was a dancer for the Magic, for Flow Rider. She uses it in the matches, as Pete said.
Oviedo High School, same high school as Jeff Driscoll.
There it is. And also, I think Matt Lee.
There you go.
Wow. Gamer.
Oh, Mariah says Fraggle, longtime great poster. Going back, I want to say to the grassy days, is my grandpa. He said to hit the like button and to stay crazy. Shout out to Fraggle. Shout out to Mariah. Like and subscribe to the show. And shout out to Naomi. I didn't know she was the oldest champion in women's history.
The more you know.
I'm loving her heel turn. I'm glad she's having her moment. She does a split-legged moonsault, similar to Rob Van Dam back in the day. And yeah, man, she is doing her thing. Oh, MC21 saying Beck can do the Penta hand signal. Cero miedo. George Kittle is friends with Penta. So George Kittle has used that hand signal in the NFL, Pro Bowl tight end. So that's already been, Randall says Oviedo. That's how you pronounce
Oviedo. There you go.
You did that. I thought it is Oviedo. That's what it sounds like. Oviedo.
Here he goes with creating his own pronunciation.
How do you pronounce O-V-E-D-O?
I mean, obviously I was pronouncing it wrong, but I'm going to respect how it's supposed to be pronounced by the people who are.
I pronounce it like a Costa Rican soccer legend.
Yeah.
Goes from Oviedo.
Oviedo.
Are you sure that Mae Young wasn't the oldest champion? I don't believe she ever held the big title, at least in her older age. I think she might have been the hardcore champion or 24/7, one of those.
Well,
but
I mean, if Charlotte gets another reign, she'll set the new watermark there.
And she will. And yeah, shout out. I give Charlotte the championship, the title every single time. But I'm going to go to the person that Naomi defeated to win this title, which is Io Sky. I could have gone with Rhea Ripley here because I think Rhea Ripley is, with Roman Reigns more part-time, the #1 wrestler in the world. Worker, presentation, the whole package. I just think her, like, if I'm comparing her and Io and I'm nitpicking, I just think her offense is a little better. Rhea, more realistic, more believable. But with Io Sky, I want to give her a props. Shout out to Master, our guy who has been promoting Io Sky since the beginning. Come back to one of the group chats, Master. We miss you. We miss you, Master.
Speak for yourself.
But he always hyped up Io Sky, and Io Sky's auto run. I thought she had the best match at WrestleMania with Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair.
One of the greatest women's matches ever.
Yeah. Both best WrestleMania matches, period. That was nonstop action for the whole time from the beginning to the end. Bianca, by the way, another one you could give it to. She looked great in her return. Hasn't wrestled yet, but just she looked great. She got a huge pop. Shout out to Bianca. But Io Sky, the athleticism, you know that, but just the pace. I thought the match against Rhea in Evolution, which is this past weekend, they started a little sloppy, and then once it got going, it was complete. It was just barn burner. The crowd was going crazy. They had a lot of time to operate, so they had some time to pick up the pace. I remember watching the World Baseball Classic a couple of years ago in Miami when Ohtani was playing against USA, and Io Sky was sitting there right behind the home plate, just by herself watching some Japanese baseball. So a proud Floridian, proud fan of Samurai Japan, and unbelievable professional wrestler. Shout out to Io Sky.
Yep. I said something when Tony Storm was brought up in conversation, saying that this was the premier signing that AEW made from WWE in terms of developing a talent and helping them reach their ceiling. That's the gold standard for AEW, and I maintain that. But on the men's side, it's my wrestler of the week, Swerve Strickland, who, even though he came from NXT, even though he kind of had a character at NXT, he was made into a star by AEW. Now, he made himself a star. All he showed was he needed the opportunity. And also, what this young man did was not only work on his character, but he worked on his body too. It's a total body transformation from when he was at NXT. He's put on a lot of weight, a lot of muscle, but he had a star-making turn in his death match against Hangman Adam Page, who replicated the magic, by the way, yet again in a death match at All In. A great pay-per-view for AEW, delivered on all expectations, and it really feels like the transition for AEW into being a real tried and true wrestling alternative. I don't think the conversation, AEW got ahead of itself in invoking a true battle with WWE because WWE had dipped that much down. The ratings were kind of reflecting, hey, this might actually be a conversation. But nobody does big time better than WWE. That being said, AEW had its biggest show both in terms of presentation and gate, and Swerve Strickland was the most over wrestler at that show. Great theme song, a theme song that he helped create. Great manager in Prince Nana. Great character, great matches, can take nasty bumps, can get really violent, is believable when he gets weird, wrestles a WWE style, but still can lean into some of the indie charm that AEW has. This guy's shown you sky's the limit. First African-American champion, world champion in AEW history. he is a true bona fide star. And if he ever goes back to WWE, I think he'd prove that statement, because he'll stroll into that building and he'd become a main eventer, I think, in pretty short order. I know that that's usually the measuring stick, but Swerve Strickland, congratulations to him and AEW for helping this young man reach his absolute ceiling. He is a true star, and someone, along with Hangman Adam Page and MJF and Tony Storm, that they should build this company around going forward.
Yeah, he definitely is one of the. I put him in Tony Storm as like a guy that was better, or gal in her case, that did better after leaving WWE. A lot of these guys that bounce back and forth are just mediocre kind of at both places. He was good in AEW. I remember seeing him in a SmackDown taping, and he was like not even on he was like a dark match of the dark matches. He was really buried in the card. So he's really stepped up. So shout out to him. He has worked on his strength levels. Delane saying Asuka needs another title. Yeah. Another great Japanese performer.
She's well into her 40s now, isn't she?
Yeah, she's old. I mean, she's older than me. But she still doesn't really miss the beat. But yeah, you know what? I reflected, we were talking about the Mississippi State punter commit who converted to Islam, Gunner. And you remember Homeland, that show Homeland? The most powerful scene what's that actor's name?
I never watched Homeland.
But the actor, he was in
the redhead?
Yeah, he was in the movie Billions.
Yeah, he did
Axe.
He does a great Steve McQueen in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, whatever that guy's name is.
I'll get it.
Yeah, get that guy's name. Anyways, that was probably the most powerful scene in Homeland, was when this American hero, white guy with red hair, Damian Lewis. The former defensive lineman.
I don't think that Canes fans are calling him a hero right now on the recruiting trail.
If you remember that show Homeland, when he goes into his garage and starts, praying a Islam prayer, that's like the powerful scene, because it's so jarring to see a white guy doing that, converting that way. Then of course now you're seeing it here in real life with this punter commit for Mississippi State, Gunner. This was all predated by the visionary, as many times he has proven to be, Vince McMahon, with Sergeant Slaughter's conversion to Islam in the height of the Persian Gulf War.
Did he convert to Islam, or just decided he was going to be an ally?
Well, you can't be in the Iraqi army if you're not part of it, if you're not Islamic. So I think it was implied that Sergeant Slaughter converted to Islam. So Vince McMahon, that was 1991, 92, and we're here into 2025, and Vince clearly ahead of that trend, both in terms of the entertainment and then also with the real life events. So shout out to that storyline. I think it looks better in retrospect.
I still think that was third rail for Vince. I don't think he went full conversion, but okay. So you want to remember it that way.
So you think he just hated America so much that he sided with the Iraqi army without converting?
Hey, that's going around.
So we'll see what happened with I can do some more digging on Sergeant Slaughter and his religious beliefs. But switching gears,
you'd be surprised he wasn't even a military man.
Yeah, stolen valor.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's go to the music side of things. You went to one of my favorite musical countries for yours. So give us your song of the week there, Mike.
I'm going with Satanic ABBA, Ghost. I've talked about this band before. Now, this band is a really interesting band, not unlike Tame Impala, in that one member does everything, writes all the music, plays all the instruments.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like Nine Inch Nails?
Yeah.
And then he has a band to tour?
He has a touring band that rotates every album. And every album cycle, this is a theme band. It's very theatrical. Yes, they're deemed satanic because of the lyrical content, but it's all for show. Every show you go to, you're going into this evil church, and he plays a character. And every album cycle, there is a new pope. One time it was a cardinal, but it's all played by the same guy, but it's a different theme for every album. Went to this show at the Kaseya Center on Sunday. This was a dream. You walk in, you put your phone in a sleeve. It's locked for the show. I like that. It allows you to suck yourself into the show, because even if I'm at a show with my favorite artist, I'll be checking my phone. I'm that addicted to the thing. So I like forcing the issue. Show started right at 8:00. No opening act.
Timely Swedes.
No opening act. They played for an hour and 45 minutes. I was out of the Kaseya Center on a Sunday night before 10:00. And they sounded great. It was a true arena rock spectacle. Costumes, wardrobe changes, special effects, flames. The sound was incredible. The crowd was into it. There were a lot of kids there. There were a lot of women there. I couldn't believe the amount of women that were dressed like nuns. Everybody painted their face. It feels like this is modern day Kiss. So for the song of the week, I decided to pick a song that doesn't invoke Satan, and that's dancey and catchy. And most people, when I describe this band, you would think you'd hear some like Scandinavian death metal. That's not the case with Ghost. They are very corny. They're a lot like Kiss. They're very dancey at times, and this is called Dance Macabre. Check out this song. Maybe it's a gateway to check out some more of their stuff. They do shock people. There was this one guy I pre-gamed at the corner at the bar. There was this guy by himself, looked like your, archetype of a alcoholic, but he was just there by himself, just chilling. We took over the Spotify account and we were playing a bunch of Ghost music to ramp up for the show. We leave, we go to the show. We came back to the bar because we got out of that show so early. And the bartender was like, hey, the guy that was sitting there went to the show once he found out that the music that you were playing was right across the street. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool. We converted somebody. The guy walks into the bar about 5 minutes later. He's like, I had no idea that they were satanic. I'm like, I'm sorry about that. He's like, I had fun. Everybody seemed to have a great time, but next time, give me a heads up. I'm like, that's fair.
I'm going to ignore the sacrilege and focus on the ethnicity because he's a Swede. I agree with you. I heard this song right before the show, liked it. I thought it was going to be more Scandinavian death metal. It was very melodic, very fun, definitely Kiss oriented and Swedish oriented.
Mhm.
So the Swedes, for those who don't know, have been dominating popular music in this country for many, many years. ABBA, Ace of Base, and then they started writing songs. Max Martin in particular, probably the best songwriter or the most successful songwriter as far as like hits since the Beatles, maybe even exceeding the Beatles. And no one's ever heard of him.
Only producer to get anything worth a damn out of Justin Timberlake over the last 15 years.
No, I mean, this guy's unreal. So, but to your point, so Swedes have a long history with melody. I believe it goes back to some of the religious songs they sang, hymns, and then some of the work songs they sang on the farm. They also have very high like musical education as well. It's a big part of their culture.
Yeah, they invest in the arts.
So they're very good melodically. ABBA, of course, Ace of Base. I mean, who had catchier songs than that? Then this guy, Max Martin, to your point about Kiss, he was in a Kiss cover band. That was his favorite band. And then he realized, I mean, how far can I go playing these kind of Kiss type songs? Let me switch my style to write songs for Americans. And Swedes speak English. They're pretty good at English, but not perfect. So he started writing songs for Americans. And if you notice, a lot of the lyrics of those early songs don't make any sense in terms of like an English speaker that's native. Hit Me Baby One More Time sounds like domestic violence to an American listener, but it's just his version of American slang. That was, of course, written by Max Martin, the Britney Spears song.
I Want It That Way.
I Want It That Way. Nothing But a Heartache, whatever that song is about. That is also just a Swede trying to sound English. You look at the number one hits and forget the number one hits. This guy had Since You've Been Gone, which is not a number one hit, but was an incredible song. Really started a whole movement with Kelly Clarkson. He had the My Way, or what's this? It's My Life by Bon Jovi. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Dynamite. Like It's Dynamite. Those are just non-number ones. But you look at number ones, just going down the list.
Cruz.
Yeah, there you go. I mean,
what happened to him?
He got rid of the Swedes. Just look at the number one hits. Baby One More Time. It's Gonna Be Me by NSYNC. I Kissed a Girl by Katy Perry. So What by Pink. My Life Would Suck Without You, Kelly Clarkson. Some more Britney Spears songs. California Girls by Katy Perry. Teenage Dream, Katy Perry. Raise Your Glass, Pink. E.T., Katy Perry. Another Britney Spears song that I never heard of.
Love that
E.T. a hit. Song. Another Katy Perry, more Katy Perry, Maroon 5, Taylor Swift, when she started making those number one hits in 2014, that was all him. You talk about Blank Space, Shake It Off, and what are we talking about? Roar, Katy Perry, Bad Blood.
These are some of the biggest pop songs.
And then The Weeknd,
the 21st century,
biggest. Yeah. And then The Weeknd jumps in the mix. I Can't Feel My Face, The Weeknd, Swede, Max Martin, Can't Stop the Feeling, the Troll song, Justin Timberlake. Then you go on and on, Blinding Lights by The Weeknd. And Ariana Grande, a couple songs this year that went number one. So he had 2 number one hits last year in 24 with Ariana Grande. So we're talking about the best songwriter of his generation.
Blinding Lights,
Swedes make melody.
Blinding Lights is probably the biggest song of the 21st century.
Swede, right?
Yeah, because pop culture kind of froze during the pandemic, and The Weeknd dropped that album then, so it stayed on the charts forever. There was no real culture. There weren't live shows. There wasn't clubs advancing the music. So the Weeknd climbed the mountaintop, seized on a market inefficiency that no one else was going to advance the culture, and helped propel Blinding Lights to being possibly the biggest song of the 21st century.
So that was a partial list. This guy's written pretty much every major pop song of the last, 30 years. I'll give you another Swedish band you never thought of. Cotton Eye Joe, the Rednecks. Yeah. They're not, in fact, rednecks, Swedes.
Mike Snow, American front person, great producer, works a lot with Lady Gaga. 2 producers did Britney Spears' Toxic. The 2 members of Mike Snow. Robin is a great artist out of Sweden. I think per capita, Sweden puts out the best music, no doubt.
Oh, hands down. Particularly when it comes to the melody aspect. Very mechanical. So the way he'll write a song is he'll write the melody, and then like a Katy Perry, he'll say, hey, write a song from your perspective as whatever, a woman, but you cannot change the syllables. The syllables have to remain consistent because it's mathematical. It's like da, 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 da. Every line matches the second line. It's mathematical.
Mhm.
They're mirror images every single time. So you have to match it. So you could put the lyrics in, Taylor Swift, whatever you want to sing about, but it's got to be blank space. Da 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 da.
That's how I co.
It's got to match.
That's how I co-wrote my musical with my producing friend JT. He's really good with melodies. I'm like, let's build out the song. Give me a melody, and I'll build it out from there. And he just gave me incredible melodies.
You charted with that one.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you get a Swede go number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Just stock
it did go number 1 on iTunes.
There you go, right there, number 1 selling artist, and you didn't even need a Swede to do it, so you need extra credit for that.
Mm-hmm.
Switching gears here to a much, if you talk about the song in the 2000s, you mentioned Blinding Lights. I would say, like a Seven Nation Army could be potentially the song of this millennium.
The turn.
But I would go to a song before the turn of the century for this band, which is the White Stripes. I actually asked my wife before I came, what song should I pick for Song of the Week? And she said, When I Hear My Name, the White Stripes debut album. It says released 2009. I think that's a re-release. I believe this actually
so
came.
This isn't your Song of the Week. This is your wife's Song of the Week.
This is Dr. Money's Song of the Week.
Oh. Well, there's no way that album was released in 09.
No, it was released, I believe, 99, something like that, 98. But anyway.
It said 09.
It's all right. It's all right, bud.
It's all right. We forgive you.
I don't know what the
I know.
You were so dead on with your wrestler of the
You've
week
been great.
that you're chilling.
You've been great. The re-releases tend to get you though, so just keep an eye out for that.
But When I Hear My Name, White Stripes, to me,
I have to know when it releases it first to know that it was a re-release.
I know, but it's okay. I'm not upset.
When you talk about the White Stripes, they've had bigger hits than this. But to me, if you're talking about the classic White Stripes song, I am going with this song off their debut album. It's the simplest song in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It has every aspect of the White Stripes: the simplicity, the force, the bluesy guitar breaks in the middle from Jack White. He plays some licks. He shows you that he has that ability. Meg White's drumming is so simple, childlike in its simplicity, but it's powerful because of that. I always used to get in fights with my friends because I was in a band back in this era. Oxygen back in the Grove, I believe, we kind of we sold that venue out numerous times.
Ska band? You were big in the ska?
No, we were not a ska band.
Oscar Isaac was.
Oscar Isaac of Star Wars. We opened for him. I like to believe we outshone that band. Ska was kind of dying at the time, but they were older, so they got the nod. But we kind of dominated that Oxygen scene, formerly the Chili Pepper. I don't know what it is now. But anyways,
I think it's Carbone.
Me and my bandmates would fight about this band because one of my favorite bands at the time, they would always say, yeah, Jack White's great, but when he gets a real drummer, he'll be that much better, and or a bassist, the whole band. And I disagreed, and I think history has shown that they were never better than where they were together here in their simplest form, because the fact that you didn't have a bass player and the drummer did not really keep a beat and followed the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
She could just follow him wherever he went. So he can go crazy and she would follow him. And then the childlike simplicity of the drums added to the powerful effect. There was a lot of space in the music, similar to an AC/DC, where there's just parts where there's no music being played because it's just bop, 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 as opposed to just steady strumming and million sounds throughout. This song, to me, the most classic, quintessential White Stripes song, When I Hear My Name, by the White Stripes, off their debut album, also called The White Stripes.
Love the album. Love the song choice. The White Stripes are my favorite band of all time, and saying that on the record for many years, usually what people hammer back with is, well, Meg White stinks. And so much so to the point that I was like, well, I guess like they could have a better drummer. She is pretty simple. And then Dave Grohl put it in perspective. Dave Grohl, reputed to be a pretty good drummer, labeled Meg White as one of his favorite drummers of all time. And it's a lot because of what Dee said. That is a very difficult band dynamic, especially when you have a guitar player who's as gifted as Jack White. He's as gifted because of that powerful, almost staccato-like drumming approach of Meg White's. While it was simple, it had enough power for multiple pieces in that band. They generate so much noise for a two-piece. It's really impossible. And if you've seen Under the Great White Northern Lights, you get a pretty cool insight into their very strange dynamic. But that's off stage. On stage, their dynamic was pretty strange. As someone that's had the privilege of watching Jack White on stage and seeing how all the band members have to follow his lead, it is a very difficult job. For all that pressure to fall on just one person, I can't even imagine. It's why she burned out and they're no longer a band.
I saw them on the tour. What was the Get Behind Me, Satan tour, which is actually not satanic. That's a Bible line.
Yeah, it was like, get behind me, ghost.
Yeah, but so that tour, which they were at the peak of their powers, I saw them in Atlanta. Great show, one of the best shows I've ever been to in my life. But they were like fighting during the show. It felt like an old school rock show because it was so unpredictable. And she would fall off. She would mess up constantly. He would mess up constantly. Because remember, there's no bass player.
Yeah.
There's no rhythm guitarist. So like he can do crazy stuff that's not proper because no one has to follow him except for her. And she was not really keeping traditional time. So she would just kind of stop what she's doing and follow him. It was so unorthodox, but it made sense. It allowed him to kind of be freer. And if you talk about a band that had the same setup with just guitar and drums, but still didn't sound as good, I'd say it would be the Black Keys, which to me were a knockoff. I never got into them. That's like commercial music to me, like literally in commercials. And the drummer was very good. The sound was fine, but it didn't have that same unpredictable magic of the White Stripes.
I would always say like the Black Keys sound like the White Stripes if the drummer had two arms, but the guitar player only had one.
Oh, look at that. What a phrase. That's why I pay you the big. That's why you're number one on the charts right there.
I do like two-piece bands, though, primarily because the White Stripes hit it. Royal Blood out of the UK, they generate a lot of power. They're fun. It's really hard to do that live. You have to have like backing music behind you. White Stripes didn't. You watch the White Stripes live, what you saw was what you got, and the music would take on a new form with every live performance, as it usually does with Jack White. You could watch him a million times, as I have, and the same song will sound different every time he plays it because he improvises so much.
Death Letter live with the old slide guitar is the best music. And I saw that live at that show, best I've ever seen. I think she also drank. Like she was the partier of the crew, more so than him. So that also contributed to the tension. But tension makes good music. That's a great song.
And I truly believe one of the rare bands that I believe they're broken up. Well,
yeah.
And I never got an opportunity to see the White Stripes, which is a shame.
Yeah, so that's not that. Because I never got into Jack White after, so I only saw the White Stripes. But seeing them, the way I would describe it is, it felt like it constantly was going to fall apart because they both would mess up, like in the middle of the song.
Sound like that. The music sounds like it was hanging on by a thread. When they were touring, they never came down to South Florida. I think they had one show in West Palm back in the day, but that's not when I had disposable income.
No, we saw them in Atlanta because we were up there in the North Florida. But that was unreal. And Death Letter live, the best song I've ever seen live. Anyways, this Saturday, Canes Connection event. This is at 1 to 2 Saturday, Miami Hurricane Team Store, right across the street from the University of Miami. JoJo Trader, David Blay, Bobby Pruitt, Markeith Williams, meet them live at the Miami Hurricane Team Store. Bring your kids, bring your family. Great event, great kids at the team store, 1 to 2 on Saturday. Don't miss it. We'll be there. I'll not be there. We'll see, but it's a great event. Miami Hurricane Team Store, Insight 20% off. Go Canes.
Go Canes.
Go Canes.